Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Resilient Aging Unfiltered podcast. Dr. Dani Cabral here. I'm so excited. This is such a special episode to be joined by Mike Zuendel. I met Mike Zuendel, who's been really quickly become one of my heroes. He's the founder of the initiative to change the D word, and that's how I met him through a LinkedIn post he posted about the organization, which we'll talk about a lot, I'm sure. And I wrote this is brilliant, this needs to happen. And he responded to me. And then so we have a lot of similar passions and values in this space. And I'm so lucky. I feel so honored to know you and get to interact with you, especially here today. So I'll give the formal bio here and then we'll get more into the informal. Mike Zuendel has a passion for advocating for those with Alzheimer's disease. He graduated from the University of Iowa and then completed postdoctoral training in pediatric dentistry at Ohio State. With a family history of Alzheimer's and as a care partner for his parents, he himself sought early detection, patient-centered treatment, and advocacy roles. And then in 2020, he was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease. Mike is passionate about addressing the stigma associated with Alzheimer's, advocating for early detection and treatment, and then he founded the initiative to change the D word to address this stigma associated with the D word, dementia, and demented through language change. And he is a member of many boards and organizations, and I'm sure that list is increasing by the day. He's a member of the National Early Stage Advisors Group of the Alzheimer's Association, the Global Neuroscience Patient Council, the Alzheimer's Patient Advisory Board of the Center for Study on Clinical Research Participation, and the Board of Directors of the Banner Alzheimer's Institute Foundation. He also is the founder and CEO of Legacy Bridge Private Family Offices, and he and his wife, Brooks, have 5 children, and they have lots of fun hobbies, including skiing, Baja off-roading, off-road racing, paddleboarding, traveling, and finding gratitude in everyday life. That's so beautiful. So thank you for joining us. Wow, that is such a long list.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate what you're doing. The brain health issues now are really becoming to the forefront, and I truly think you're one of the leaders in the approaching that you take as an acting clinician, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon.
Right back at you. Thank you. And what you're doing has really emboldened me to move forward with what I want to do to help people in a more comprehensive way and change the narrative and how we approach these things. So maybe we'll start with when you first, so your parents they both had Alzheimer's. Is that right?
Yeah, both my parents had Alzheimer's. I was their caretaker. They both had very different courses of the disease, as I don't know if everybody has the exact same course, but my mom's course was more benign. My dad's course was a little more severe. Looking back at my father's history, he played football at Notre Dame and played with a leather helmet, so I don't know if some issues of that were present. But yes, they both had Alzheimer's disease and passed away from Alzheimer's disease. I inherited from them both 2 APOE4 genes, which is the Alzheimer's gene, and my 2 daughters, they each have one gene, one APOE4 gene. So the Alzheimer's arena is very close to our family personally.
Yeah. So how old were you when you were their caretaker?
Gee, I was in my late 50s. I was in my late 50s. My father was diagnosed first, and his course ran about 5-6 years. And then after we lost Dad, then a few years later, then my mother became afflicted, and her course of disease probably lasted about 8 years. It was a while.
And how was your relationship with them, even growing up?
Oh, well, yeah, we were a pretty typical Midwestern middle-class family and did all the usual things that you would do. My dad was a big athlete, so we were always involved in athletics. And my mom had an Irish heritage, and she embodied the stereotypical happy, wonderful, enjoyed life type of persons. Yeah, they were great parents and
Yeah. You have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and I'm the youngest in the family, and I'm 70 years old.
Okay. So you're the youngest of 4?
That is correct.
And that's so as a specialist in this area, that is pretty atypical for the youngest and the youngest son to become the caretaker for the parents. How
Well,
did that happen?
my parents were in Des Moines and I was in Des Moines, so I was the only one. And one brother lives on the East Coast and one brother lives on the West Coast, and my sister doesn't live very close. So I only lived about 3 blocks from them. So that was not a lot of geographical challenges there to help them,
I see. Okay.
My
Yeah.
mom, my dad had a really severe course, and that was quite a while now. I'd have to count it up, at least 20 years ago, probably. He could not be admitted to a nursing home, so to speak, lack of a better word, unless it was through a hospital. So he had a really, really bad incident one evening where he was hallucinating and fighting off strangers, and so we got him in the hospital. And then from the hospital, we got him moved to nursing care. So it was a very difficult situation to try and get all that organized and all that done. And at that time, the only thing they knew to do was to heavily sedate him with some antipsychotic drugs, and it was just a bad scene.
I'm sure at that time, you had a lot of responsibilities with kids and work and wow.
Yeah, I had a lot of responsibilities. I was a only parent for my 3 children, and so I was running a full-time dental practice and taking care of three children, taking care of my parents. You just do what you do. People say, wow, that was, how did you do that? You just do what you do, You have 2 choices. You can go sit in the corner and suck your thumb, or you can just do what life gives you, And so I looked at it as just nothing out of the normal, but it's just a situation where you're in and you have to react to it and you have to respond and you have to, do what you have to do.
Yeah. So you weren't like pitying yourself. You weren't wasting energy on it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. So then you had, of course, that on your radar for yourself, for as many adult children of people who care for their parents. So I'm curious, I would imagine you were quicker to seek, an evaluation when you started noticing things changing for yourself?
Well, Dr. Cabral, you would have thought so. Okay. Obviously, I was aware of my own cognitive issues, okay? Mm-hmm. I always thought, and I still do, think I had a bit of ADD, okay? My memory has never been the greatest. I got teased by my children, so I didn't know, but as time went on, I kept wondering and wondering and wondering. Because, we talked about it later, but, I had some bouts of depression, during my life, and I did not want to find out the diagnosis because I was afraid I'd go down into that dark hole again. It wasn't severe depression, but it wasn't pleasant. So I was afraid that would happen. Like really, really, really afraid. So one day I was walking around. Fast forward 10, 15 years, I was walking around my house and I couldn't find my phone, so I went downstairs to the garage. My house has 5 levels on it, so I went downstairs to the garage to find my phone. Couldn't find it. Went upstairs to the kitchen. Couldn't find my phone. Went to my office. Couldn't find my phone. Went upstairs to my bedroom. Couldn't find my phone. Went back downstairs and shouted to my wife. I said, "Hey, Brooks, could you please call my phone? Because I can't find it." So she called my phone. And my phone rang. It rang quite loudly. And I had been holding my phone in my hand the whole entire time. And so that was my moment of truth when I said, "Okay, Mike, we gotta figure this out. Okay, is this ADD? Is it cognitive impairment? Really what's going on?" So that was my personal trigger to kind of get serious. But I delayed that, Dr. Cabral, for at least 5 years.
Wow.
That I really wanted to get tested.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Surprisingly, when I was doing this, one of my daughters said, "Well, Dad, we took a 23andMe test. And you can go find out." And I didn't know that you could get that information out. So I went back and looked at the test, and lo and behold, there I've got both APOE4 genes. So those things all sort of came together at the same time, and that's when I sought out treatment.
Okay, wow. I'm sure a lot of people who are afraid out there and wait much longer can be inspired by what you're doing.
I like to tell people, especially now, please, please, please get early detection, okay?
Yeah.
That's the only path out of this disease is to detect it early. I don't like to use the word diagnosis because no one wants a diagnosis, but detection is something that sounds a little more positive. So we use the phrase early detection.
I see.
Without early detection, I can go into the whole story if you want. I would not be able to sit here and speak to you today. I am totally convinced of that.
I want to circle back to this, what you said about no one wants a diagnosis. So tell me more about your feelings about the word diagnosis. What is that? What happens with
Well, diagnosis means you have a disease, okay? You get diagnosis with an ailment, okay? But if you detect something, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean you have that disease, okay? I compare it to skin cancer, okay? Precancerous skin cancer, where your dermatologist says, oh, we've got this spot right here, he's detected a spot, on your arm, okay, so that was from early detection. After I've gotten into this initiative to change the D word, I'm really realizing the power of a word, and how we frame things does make a difference.
So I think the way I'm understanding what you're saying is that saying detection leaves room for negative findings. Possible that there is something or there isn't,
Correct.
whereas with diagnosis, it's like definitive that it's so then and that word shift to may not seem like a big deal because to me, I personally wouldn't have picked up on that.
Yeah.
But that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's a lot
it's
to
just,
be said.
it's just a minor little
Yeah.
thing, it's just, I just think how you approach things can make a difference.
Absolutely. So maybe we could jump to, so when you got the diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, how did that affect you in the short term?
Oh boy, so it's kind of a long haul to get to that diagnosis. After I decided I want to get treated, I tried to find the better places for me to be treated where I live. I live in a small town. The nearest stoplight's 45 miles away, so I have to go elsewhere for health care. So I tried to get into Mayo Clinic, and I didn't have the right qualifications or symptoms or whatever, but that took about, I want to say 4 or 5 months from the time I applied to the time I got an answer. Nothing against the Mayo Clinic. I think right now that's pretty standard length of time, unfortunately. And so I found a really great institute in Phoenix, Banner Alzheimer's Institute, but it took me about 6 months to get into there, okay? And I got in there, and I went to the first exam, and my doctor, it was a shorter exam, but diagnosed me with memory loss, okay? And then she wanted me to come back for a more thorough evaluation. So I came back for a more thorough evaluation, and that involved a 3-hour neurocognitive exam and a beta amyloid PET scan. And from those two, the neurocognitive exam said my results were consistent with mild cognitive impairment, okay? And then I got the results from my beta amyloid PET scan, which said I had a pathological buildup in multiple areas of my brain with complete loss of the gray-white matter border in multiple areas, consistent with mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease. I was diagnosed. I got that diagnosis off of the portal when I was home alone on a weekend, and I was sort of expecting it, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was devastating. It was a long tough week. So that's kind of very briefly. That was my journey to getting diagnosis. Reading that, I have a somewhat of a science background. I knew what they meant. When they say a pathological buildup throughout your brain, that's not that's not something you want to read.
Yeah. So what did you do in that night that you saw that?
I got my family together, a lot of tears, and I told them right then and there that I was going to defeat this disease. I said, I don't know how, I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to defeat this disease. I don't want to wind up like my mother and my father. And whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And don't worry, we're going to get through this. That was one of the first things we talked about, is my determination to defeat Alzheimer's disease. And I think I'm going to be one of the first people to actually be able to make that statement here pretty soon, the next year or two. So
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And so that was already 5 years ago.
Yeah, I got diagnosed 5 years ago. 5 years ago, what day is today? June?
July.
In 3 days, it'll be exactly 5 years ago.
Wow.
No, actually, I got diagnosed in June, so it's already 5 years and 1 month.
Okay.
So yeah, it seems like a long time ago, that
Mhm.
I've been living with, cognitive impairment. The message I want to get out to people is you can get this disease detected. There are several disease modifying treatments available today, and you can get that treatment, and it can remove the beta amyloid plaque from your brain, and you can lead a normal, happy, healthy, productive, and wonderful life. As I like to tell people, you can walk, talk, chew gum, and have Alzheimer's disease all at the same time. It's not with this new treatments available, and with all that's going on in the Alzheimer's treatment world. It's very exciting for those of us who have the disease, because we're at the beginning of a new wave of treatments. It'll probably resolve into multiple different types of treatments, but at least now we've got hope, and it's not false hope anymore. It's real hope, and that's the message I try to deliver to people: is go ahead, take that step, and you're going to get through it, and you're going to be okay, and there's treatments available, but don't wait.
How have you found that message has been received?
Very well,
Yeah.
but I have close friends who still haven't acted.
Mm.
They talk to me and say, I'm feeling like this. And I say, you really ought to, I have family members. I say, you really ought to go get tested, So what I've kind of concluded from that, and we can get into the initiative in a little bit, but people don't want to know, okay? People don't want to know. They're afraid for multiple reasons, okay? So people don't want to know. They don't really know that there is treatment available, okay? Number one, that's huge, And we have a problem in our healthcare system with, the healthcare system now is really not prepared to have 4 million people show up their doorstep wanting neurocognitive exams and anti-amyloid infusions and things like that. So I mean, it's a big challenge right now, but people are getting treated, and people are having plaque removed from their brains daily.
I'm curious if people who've had changes in their thinking and are concerned it's Alzheimer's have reached out to you and said they've taken action related to.
Yeah. I tell everybody I meet, here's my phone number, give me a call. I've been there, I've done it, I've been deeply involved in it, both on a patient side and an advocacy side, and I follow the research quite closely. But I'm just one person with one story, but here's my story, And if you want any advice from me, it would be, let's figure this out right away, because it could be something else,
For sure.
as you will know, it's a disease that often gets misdiagnosed. Could be a lot of different things, and that. That's what you make your living doing. But get after it, and people have reacted very, very positively. And I do get frequent calls, and people just want to talk, and find out about this. What's this new drug you've been on, and things of that nature. And I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, anytime. So
That's really amazing that you've opened yourself up like that.
I don't feel uncomfortable. So, the second talk I had with my family was, what am I going to do with this disease? Okay, I got this disease. Okay, apparently it's not going to go away anytime fast. So how am I going to deal with this disease? And how are we as a family going to deal with this disease? And the one thing I told them is, one, I did not want to hide it. Okay. I did not want to not tell my friends. I have a business where I have some employees. I did not want to hide it from them. I have clients who really trust us with a lot of personal things, and I did not want them to hear about on the street or something. But I wanted to go public when I realized that there was a stigma around this, leading to, or my client's going to leave me, or my friend's not going to talk to me. So there's a stigma surrounding Alzheimer's disease. I was afraid to go public because of that stigma, but I wanted to go public to fight the stigma, because I felt it was very, very unfair for me, being in the mild stage, to be classified as someone who really doesn't have much intellect or executive functioning or things of that nature.
I'm curious if when you got, so you said you got your family together and you were like, I'm going to have this for many years. Like, how are we going to manage this, and how am I going to live my life? how are we going to live our lives? So was there a time before that though that you were so bold and courageous? Was it a process to get to that mindset? Because it's very rare. Yeah.
I think I knew before I got diagnosed that for some reason, if I did get that diagnosis, I wanted to do good with it. Okay. Not sure where that came from. But I thought, I've always wanted to be a public speaker, but I've always been afraid of public speaking. Okay. It's the number one fear in adults.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that'd be pretty neat if you could do that. But I never had a platform and I never had passion. And when I found out I had this disease, I slowly over time, through my involvement with the early stage advisory group, got exposed to media interviews and things like that. And my first few were horrible and I got better at it. But
Totally.
I don't know where it came from, Dani, but as we go through life, you're supposed to follow your passion. Well, what if you're just an average Joe and you don't really have a passion for saving the world? You just want to live a nice life, you know. But I always thought it would be good if I could contribute in a way that had some impact, that I don't want to look back on my last days on this earth and think I could have done something. I don't want to have any regrets. I'll put it that way. I don't want to live a life with regrets. And I think that's one thing, and now that you're asking that question, I think about it. I think that's been sort of a driving part of some of my life, is I don't want to have any regrets, you know. Of, gee, I wish I would have done this, and I wish I would have done that, you know. I mean, we all have regrets in life. Let's not, you know, kid ourselves, but it's just something in me that wanted to maybe take this as my passion, and maybe I could help other people by saying, not that I'm special, but, you know, hey, I've got this disease. And most people who meet me go like, geez, I didn't know that, you know, because our perception of someone with Alzheimer's disease is a very, very bad perception of what this disease is really like. Our perception of Alzheimer's disease is the final end stages. There's a whole lot that happens before that. Okay? And now that we have some treatments, it's, you know, we can do this.
Yeah. And do you, this no regrets mindset, have you always had that, or did that come recently, or?
I think so. I was a pediatric dentist, and I had a great practice. I had a very large I was a single practitioner. I had a lot of really great patients who still call me Dr. Mike 30 years later when I see them, you know, so that's kind of rewarding. But I retired from that fairly early. I think I was 44 when I retired, because I love my practice, I love my kids, but I thought, well, maybe I'd try something else. You know, I've been successful at this, and let's see what else, because I didn't want to go through life with a regret. Gee, I wish I would have tried this. Mm-hmm. I was in that field and did well, and maybe I could try something else. You know, so I just didn't want to being afraid to do things. I've started several businesses, which I should not have had any reason to start those businesses. I didn't know anything about them, but I just don't want to have any regrets. Most of them failed. Some were successful. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying.
Yeah.
There's a great thing I think Theodore Roosevelt said about the man in the ring, you know, who gets knocked down and comes back up and gets knocked down, and at least he got in the ring, you know, where everyone else just watched.
Was there anything that happened like growing up or in your younger years that gave you that kind of fire, or that's just you?
No, I don't think so. My upbringing was really normal, average.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a paper route. I tell my kids I've had 38 jobs in my life. I started working when I was 14 and I haven't stopped.
Yeah.
I don't know. You are who you are. You look at families and you have one child who's very extroverted and another child who's introverted, and you think, how do they come from the same family? You know, they're so different, but we're all just different people.
I'm sure there's some people that might say to you, well, you know, it's easy for you to access all of these great treatments and things, like you're, you know, well educated and resourced, but some people might not be able to do that so readily. Like, how do you respond to that?
Number one, I have had some success. That had nothing to do with my treatments, okay? I'm curious by nature. Maybe that's something else that's been helpful. I'm curious by nature. You know, I know a tiny little bit about a whole lot of things. So I'm dangerous. So I'm curious about a lot of things. So So I started looking at Alzheimer's articles and stuff on the internet. My parents had it, and after they passed and I started getting worried about myself, I really started going on the internet and learning all I could about it, And then when I got diagnosed, I really dived into the internet. So my access was to the internet, okay, which is not. Most people can get access to the internet. Not everybody, I realize that, but most people get access to the internet. And you can do your own research, and you don't have to be a super intellect. I'm certainly not. Just to know what's going on. So that's what helped me. And then my persistence in getting into Mayo, which failed, and it got into Banner Alzheimer's Institute, was only because of my own perseverance, okay? It had nothing to do with anything else. I was just another Joe off the street to them. But I did it on my own because I firmly believe that you have to take care of your own personal health, your own personal diagnosis. You need to find out about that, I believe that about life in general. You need to be aware of your life and what's going on, maybe the way I'm built. But you got to take it into your own hands. You got to be your own best advocate, okay? You got to advocate for yourself, okay? And that's how I got into these studies. I'm sorry, I've never been in a study, but that's how I was one of the very first people to take aducanumab. I was one of the very first people to start on a maintenance dosage. I was one of the very first people to get a tau PET scan. Okay, that was all because I was kind of persistent, and I kind of bugged my doctors. Can I get this? Can I get that? Yeah, we made some financial help to where we think it'll do the most best. But in reality, that had nothing to do with it. It was all just being your own best advocate and not giving up until you get what you want and you see the right doctors. And so that's another thing I can tell people, don't just look around and come in prepared with questions. If they don't give you the right answers, find somebody else.
And I try to tell the community and patients and families like that while it can feel scary to try to, find out what's going on and maybe get, whatever diagnosis, you can then take control of your life because you know what you're dealing with. So there is a period where, it's a lot of uncertainties, but then once you have some certainty, and like you said, it could be a number of things and multiple things often,
Yes.
with aging, so many things
Yes.
that once you get the information, and often you can then get family members and friends involved. Being informed is so crucial.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is. It's the way our medical system is now. Is you got to be your own best advocate, and you can find good care. There's great doctors out there, You just have to find them. So, anyways, yeah. So that got me going on that, and then I started the initiative, and that was something I did all on my own, also, just because I felt there was a stigma, and I didn't like that stigma, and I was going to do something about it.
And you sure have. So wow, like not everyone that decides they're going to do something goes so big or it, catches on like this. So maybe you could tell the audience a little bit more about the initiative.
Sure. So, both of my parents had this disease, and everyone said, they had dementia. And I did not like that word, okay? My sister did not want to hear that word, okay? Don't tell her that mom and dad had dementia, okay? Something else. She wasn't in denial, but that word, and it was the same with me. So when I got diagnosed with it, I started taking offense to it, because one means, in Latin, it means out of mind. The synonyms are cuckoo, wacko, insane, nutty, perverted. They're just horrible symptoms. Why would we be calling someone that demented? I've had people say, well, we don't use the word demented, but we do use dementia. And my response to that is you cannot do that. In the English language, demented is the adjective of dementia, okay? Someone with dementia is deemed to be demented, and someone who is demented suffers from dementia. So I put that argument to rest real quick when people bring that up to me. So I did not like this, and so I got involved with the Alzheimer's Association for a year or two, and I decided that maybe I could do something about this. So I got to wondering, Dr. Cabral, if it was just me, was I just being overly sensitive to this? Everyone seems to use it, it's all over, So I commissioned a 1,000-person study, okay, across the country of people 65 years age and older, demographically and ethnically correct, okay? And we found out some really interesting things. One, yes, there is a stigma associated with the word dementia. Okay, so that's, everyone kind of goes, oh yeah, that's true. So what, big deal. So the base case, the proof statement is, because of that stigma related to the use of the word dementia and demented, it was preventing 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 in the non-white community for seeking early detection. So that's right there, the bottom line is, why don't we want to use this word? Because it's preventing people from getting early detection. Besides the fact that it's a nasty word, it's pejorative, it's humiliating, it's insulting. Besides those, just, yeah, we shouldn't be using it just because we shouldn't be using it. Very interesting, the medical world, there used to be a diagnosis of imbecile. That used to be a medical diagnosis. I'm sorry, the first diagnosis was idiot. That was followed by imbecile, which was followed by mental retardation, which finally was followed by intellectual disability. For some reason, dementia, which was first used as a diagnosis in 1787, 220 some years ago, is still in our nomenclatures. So there's lots of reasons not to use it, but the base case is, all of our treatments right now are for early detection. I'm very, very sorry, but if you're in your moderate stage, there's probably only support help that's going to be available to you. That may change, we hope so, but we have to get this early. We even have to get it before symptoms are around, which is a whole nother issue right now. So that's why I'm on my bandwagon of, we've got to stop using the word dementia because one, it's a nasty word, and two, it's preventing people from getting early detection, and therefore, they're going to lose hope. If they get early detection, they can have hope to survive this disease and to survive it and live a normal, almost normal, healthy life. Okay, people say there are so many diseases that are so much worse than my word finding issues, my short-term memory issues, my stuttering once in a while. I mean, if that's all I have, Dr. Cabral, I'm good. I am so good. There are so many things right now. I mean, good gosh, right now my brother, this is too much personal information. He's in an ICU right now, okay, fighting for his life, okay? And if all I do is stutter sometimes, and can't remember a word, I'm so lucky, so anyway, I'm sorry, that's a little bit of a speech.
No, I'm sorry that your family's going through that. I'm intrigued, if I could say, by your not having been good at public speaking before, or not feeling like that, because no one would ever think that in a million years. And that you said that was actually something you wanted to work on, and like, what an opportunity you saw this to be. That's amazing that you would have that recognition, and then you like went full throttle, and like you said, you were not great at the beginning, and like now, wow, I've seen you speak multiple times, and it's really moving.
Yeah, so that's getting Alzheimer's. At the time I got it, okay, because there's treatment available.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's been a blessing, but I'm living a life that I never would have thought, or doing things I never would have imagined. Okay. So, I'm very much into gratitude. Just reading something last night about gratitude. It's become a big, important guiding light for me, and it was presented to me by Dr. Allison Perrin at Banner Alzheimer's Institute, who told me the day I got diagnosed, she said, I just want you to remember one thing. She goes, you need to live a life of gratitude, but you need to find the gratitude. And if you look for it, it's all around you. And I've taken that to heart. And so last night, or 2 nights ago, I was reading a book on gratitude, and it said that performing acts of gratitude and noticing gratitude actually increases, I'll get this wrong, anyway, 2 biochemicals in our brain that stimulate good feelings. I think it was dopamine and you would know.
Serotonin?
Yes, yeah. And this is not something that someone's making up. They've done studies on it, So they know our brain levels increase the biochemicals that antidepressant medication does. So just by practicing gratitude, okay, you can, be happy.
Yeah. And not just be happy, but make like, wow, what a contribution you're making to the world. And that, so something that, before I met you, even for my business, I'm talking for Brain Love, like, how can we see this challenging situation as an opportunity for growth and transformation.
Yes.
While addressing the challenges, not hiding from the challenges. So you so when I heard your story and met you, you so beautifully demonstrate that in such a powerful way. And your language, you're finding your voice, so to speak, and now focusing on the language and getting rid of the D word.
Yeah.
Is really powerful.
I'll say, just in case anybody's interested, give my nonprofit a plug. You can go to www.notdemented.com. Demented.com. I think it's kind of a clever name, but there you can find out everything that we're doing and why we should be doing it. That's just that's what I believe in, and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, great. And then so the organization is called Initiative to Change the D Word, right?
That is correct. Initiative to Change the D Word at notdemented.com, and you can sign a pledge on there. We have a language guide on there. Everyone says, well, if we don't use dementia, what should we use? That seems to be a big issue, and I understand that. So we have a guide there for alternate usages and offering alternate terms, okay, of what you could use, It's something, I know you're about Alzheimer's and aging, but I was talking to someone just yesterday. I'm doing something similar to this, and they brought up the fact of aging and that some cosmetic companies now are not labeling their products as anti-aging.
Oh, good.
And I was like, yeah, because I'm 70 years old, and I am so happy I'm 70. This is going to be the best decade of my life. I have friends say, how do we get so old? And I go, wait, I'm not getting old. This perception of what aging means,
Yeah.
And so I really thought that was very, very interesting, the power of one word. In other cultures, as we know, people who are aging are revered and respected. Our culture is so youth-oriented that, so I'm fine with, I'd love being 70.
Yeah. Would you say you're pro-aging?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. No, every decade of my life has gotten easier and better. I'll just tell you that much. I think your 20s and 30s are pretty hard. I think you got to be in your 40s before you start to become an adult of any kind.
For sure. Yeah.
Everyone's different, but no, you bring it on. Stay healthy, eat right, exercise, all those just normal things that you can lead a good life and a happy life, and it's nothing to be. I can't wait. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important that young people keep hearing that message.
Yes, yeah, because I'll get you back to I'll go back to the word dementia real quick, okay? Sure. I don't know if we have time or running out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so as far as the stigma around the word dementia goes, the Harry Potter enterprise has sold, I think the number was over $5 billion worth of TVs and books, or movies and books and stuff. Okay, and most of the viewers are younger viewers, And so there is a big character in this series called the Dementor, and the Dementor was described as a ghoul-like dark creature who, in the middle of the night, sucked the souls out of human beings and left a lifeless shell. So. First we had demented, then dementia, and now dementor. So it's time to change the word. So our younger generation, that's what they've grown up with, the dementor.
Well, I'm buying what you're selling. I feel the same way.
You've been a great supporter. You've been such a good supporter. I just thank you so much. It's nice to talk to professionals and practitioners who get it.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't, because it's been around for so long. But, if we want to increase people getting early treatment, we have to get rid of the stigma. If you notice, in most commercials about Alzheimer's disease, it'll be a 50-some son or daughter with their parent, and their parent will be looking off into space, very forlornly, to being totally sort of out of touch, okay? So that's the image we're being fed of dementia. They don't show people climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, okay, or doing race cars in the desert or skiing, It's this poor, out of touch person, So that's something else that needs to be worked on too, and we are working on that. We're trying to, approaching the media is one of our key steps in trying to get them to come around to a better projection.
Great. Yeah, and I know you have the backing and support of a lot of different companies and organizations. So So it's just perfect timing, and your just momentum is amazing.
Yeah, some of the big pharma companies in this country are behind us because they realize, same thing I'm realizing, that their products sound like a broken record, are only for people in early stage or pre-early stage. So it's to their financial benefit, plus doing the good thing to get rid of the stigma.
Absolutely. So many reasons. So last, anything else you wanted to share or say? We know how to find you. We know about the change the D word.
Dani or Dr. Cabral, I call you Dani because we're friends.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful. You have my phone number. If anyone listening to this would like to call me, feel free to call me, okay? That'll be my cell phone number. The only thing I'd like to say to people who are listening is be proactive in your life, be proactive in your health. Don't be afraid to go find early detection, because for this disease, we can do a lot to either slow it down dramatically or stop it in its tracks. And that's going to be a wonderful, wonderful thing, because right now our country is in an Alzheimer's crisis. With the number of people aging, if we don't tackle this now, our system is going to be overwhelmed. So thank you, everybody who's listening to me. I really appreciate it, and I'll have a great day.
Great. Thank you. Beautiful. On that note, thank you everyone for joining this special episode of the Resilient Aging Unfiltered podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you're listening on the podcast platforms, please rate us and comment and follow us. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cabral. Thank you, Dani.